to invite you to this episode on this living library. And yeah, maybe you can share more about yourself. And my first question was, what inspired the vision beyond Elowyn? And we will learn more about Elowyn, the Quest of Time, and Earthwise. And yeah, tell me about who you are and what brought you to create it.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. And I love that word pioneer. I may borrow that term from you. I think it's really nice. Yes. So yeah, my name is Anneloes Smitsman. I'm actually calling from Mauritius. As you can perhaps hear in my accent, I was born and raised in the Netherlands in Europe. This is where I grew up, and this is where I did my first degrees. And then lived in South Africa, Australia for 8 years, and Mauritius now for a long time. And I'm also the founder and CEO of Earthwise Center. So I'll give that as context first, because then you'll understand Elowyn. So as the word says, Earthwise, it's about the wisdom of the earth. So I'm very much with you there on the importance of wisdom. And, for a very long time, wisdom was transmitted, not in writing, but through oral traditions. So my first teachers also of Earthwise, in that sense, or wisdom of earth, was nature herself, or the animals. And then later, a lot of time I spent with indigenous people, also really learning about the concepts of stewardship and custodianship, and especially what it means as a human, that when you are growing in your powers, in your abilities, that you also need to equally grow into your wisdom. Otherwise, you don't know how to take responsibility for these powers, and you also don't know how to take responsibility for the freedom that you have been entrusted with, which is a very different concept, of course, from in the Western societies, where we think freedom is my right and I'm going to take it and I'm going to enforce it no matter what. And I don't want anyone to infringe on my freedom. And from them, I learned that freedom is systemically, if a system is healthy, right? Because if an ecosystem is healthy and our relationships are healthy, then there is more choice and opportunity for everyone who forms part of that system. But you may have a nice freedom in your constitution, and my first degree was about constitutional law, but it means nothing if you are in a world that is being harmed and where there is a lot of suffering. So, coming from that perspective, and also as a sustainability system scientist, studying in depth the principles and evolutionary capacities of living systems rather than mechanistic systems, and living into those questions. What would it mean if our economies were designed and behaving as evolutionary learning systems? And the same for our political and social systems. And why is it that despite us knowing what's not working in the world, and we are seeing these major collapse pathways in place active, why is it that despite us knowing that it's not changing? And as a system scientist, I studied for a long time what we call the game dynamics underlying systemic behavior. So then you know that you cannot have a different behavior of a system if you don't change at the depth, the deeper structural coupling, the relationships, the purpose and goals that's been attributed to a system, and as well as the incentives and rewards. So when I had kind of that understanding about behavior, events, patterns, and then the deeper underlying structural realities of our systems, but also of life itself. And then looked at when my kids were growing up playing games. They love gaming. And I noticed that the kind of games that they were really attracted to, sometimes even to the point of addicted to, that they were the same game dynamics, rewards, incentives as what's driving the sustainability crisis. And this is when I got really concerned and was looking for different games for them to play, and couldn't find games that really addressed that fundamentally, and that they still said, Mom, it has to be fun. I found lots of other kind of nature-based games where like, no, we're not going to play that with our friends. So I said, okay, maybe I need to take the bold decision then to, although I'm not a gamer or was not a gamer, now I have to be, let's create a game, but do it really as a community, and see if the nature of the game is also the very game that we want to address in society. So that we call it the Mola game, the game of winners and losers, of short-term quick rash decisions that undermine our collective well-being, which is rife in technology, is rife in the game world. So it's in the making of Elowyn that we actually are countering all of those dynamics ourselves and constantly have to make decisions, value-based entrepreneurship. What is the impact we want to create? Which investors align with our values, and where do we say no? It doesn't matter how much money you want to bring in. We're not doing this. We're not onboarding you. And how fast, how slow do we go? So in a way, we are really literally in our own game now. So we have our shadow arcs that we have to face, and really looking how, when you grow this organically, it takes longer. But through that, that we can co-create together a game that empowers younger generations, that helps you develop the skills and the consciousness to truly make a difference. But also a game that starts to serve then as a funding mechanism to help to support all these beautiful projects around the world that very often don't get funded because of these Moloch economic traps. So I'll pause there so I'll give you the chance to
Yeah,
respond.
yeah, no, this is great, and yeah, I really feel, and I've been inquiring into systems and methodologies and different and dropping into this idea of games as well. Just to add this, as we're working with a group of dragon dreaming facilitators. We were I think in a Skype conversation some years ago, and then we were dreaming for dragon dreaming in Italy, and in that process there was like there should be a game that children could play from the age of 6 and learn dragon dreaming, but as a which is all about win-win and win-win-win. So win
Yes,
for me, win
yes,
for the other, win for the earth. um, and the insight that I had also in that moment is how games create the future,
yes,
because the games, and they're not just creating the future, they're creating the present as well, but they're creating the future because the games that we played as children, kind of like you're saying, are sort of get wired in how we perceive reality and the actions that we make as grown-ups. And I would say that, and we are living in a time that it's almost like too late for wait for the children to grow up. But yeah, I feel that there is, because everything is connected, there is a possibility that a new game could change also how adults, and maybe the only thing that right now political leaders can probably agree on, or ever, was a better world for their children, or for our children. So hopefully, yeah. So this, and the second question is kind of going deeper into the same thing about uh, what games can do for system change for you, and from your perspective as a researcher of that. How do you see that?
yeah, it's a beautiful question. And I think that goes back to, first of all, looking at systems change as a game. Yeah, rather than looking for kind of which game, but again, what are the game dynamics really of systemic transformation, of systems change. So what that comes back then, of course, more fundamentally, why do systems change or not change? And that this is when you can then see that a lot of the systems are not changing because the underlying archetypes, the underlying incentives, rewards, the feedback loops don't change. And so I think that the games and then systems change, of course, within itself. It doesn't tell you whether the change is generative or degenerative. And there's a lot of systems right now that are in the game of extraction. They're in the game of domination. They are in the game, as you were saying, like maybe politicians can agree that what matters is the future of our children. Yeah, and in fact, indeed, what many of them saying is my children, not our children. And they don't even my country first. I want to make my country great. So it's first seeing, okay, what is the games that we are trapped in, and what have we? Because what happens in a game, games always happen subconsciously. Yeah. So why are people feeling sometimes also so alive and so engaged? Not because it's a rational process, but a game, the archetype of the game, the archetype of the gamer, yeah, and the gamester. So the archetype of the game always reaches us subconsciously. And it's in these subconscious layers and domains that a lot of rational thinking uh, falls away. There are other impulses, there are other drivers that are now either controlling or else guiding and influencing behavior. If it's wisdom based, it's a process of inspiring, guiding behavior. If it is domination, egoic based, it will try to hijack, control, own, dominate behavior. Also looking at from that perspective. So if we're then looking at the games, we seem to engage in games, whether it is a real game or board game or video game, or whether it is the game of life, or whether it's the game of your job, or the game of what you're trying to get out of your relationship. But these drivers are operating subconsciously. And a lot of game design, there is no consciousness almost about that subconscious layer, other than if it's driven by kind of more like game dynamics of maximum profit. Then what drives it, these people have very much in depth studied how do we exploit that subconscious dimension, especially younger generations, get them addicted, get them hooked, and wire them for the kind of normalization also of violence, and the normalization of competing to win no matter what. And this is why if a game is to make a positive impact on systemic transformation in a direction that's future creative, in a direction, as you said, is active hope, um, then I think we need to kind of evaluate and look at it from those criteria first. What is the underlying, the deeper game beneath that game? What are the goals that are driving that? What is it really seeking to do? How conscious is the design? All of that comes into play.
Yeah, great. No, it makes me think how, yeah, like like we always play games, and one way to look at games from a system way is like the patterns of relating, or the mechanics or the patterns of repetition, and how they they are in a way the system, and how the
Yes.
system maintains its dynamic current state of awareness or consciousness, or also that's also maybe how it might change. So I want to kind of ask you more about the Elowyn
Yes.
game, and maybe about the maybe the most, we started talking about it before, the key mechanics of the new time. So what is the new time, and how does the Elowyn game
Mm.
brings it into reality?
Beautiful. Yes, indeed. I mean, we call it the Elowyn Quest of Time. So the Quest of Time is the quest for the new time. And what the new time represents is, first of all, not just the ending, but the transformation of the Moloch time. So in the game where we're saying the Moloch time is kind of the timeline of a Moloch-dominated world that is trapped in its own self-destruction. So in the lore of Elowyn, Moloch is like an archetype that has grown through the collective shadow dynamics of humanity for thousands and thousands of years, starting with the sacrifices of children to this kind of, some call it a deity, sometimes some are god, some are demon, Moloch that we know in the Middle East. And the Moloch in that form may have changed, but we're continuing sacrificing our children, the future generations, for the quick gains that we're hoping to get. So this, it's like we're trapped in a, and since then in the Industrial Revolution, you can say we have been trapped in a Moloch time. Moloch time is mechanistic time. It's the time of the clock that has been internalized and operationalized in virtually everything. The way that our democracies even run, yeah? 4 or 5 years, new election, and then the win-lose again. If a new person comes to power government, the first thing they do is undo all the policies of those who came before them. The same way in which we have equal time to money in our economic system. So the quest for the new time, the ushering in a new era, a new time, represents humanity waking up from that pattern. and understanding that if you want to have the winning strategy of nature, it's collaboration, not zero-sum game competition, not domination, but it's understanding who we are as humans as part of a larger planetary civilization. And that this is not a planetary civilization that we can enforce, but it's actually, almost like waking up in the realization that many, many, many non-human civilizations here. Yeah, the insects, the plants, the animals, the trees, they are also in their own way civilizations. They have many, most of them long before us. We are one of the youngest members. And what does it mean to partner them in the co-creation of a world that is thrivable for all of them and for generations to come? So the new time has also to do therefore with this very deep shift in consciousness, where it's like it's a shift of the maturation of human consciousness. We are very much acting out as a juvenile species, and we see some, in from a collective perspective, at least that's my view of this. It's almost like a very loud part of our humanity is regressing into earlier stances of colonial stances, but there is a deep underswell also of humanity. And I think this is many of the people who are here in this conversation with, we're saying, no, we're not going that way. We're not regressing. We are for the maturation of our consciousness. We understand that there's something profoundly possible in our togetherness, and really coming into this wisdom and the maturation of that togetherness, of stewarding also both the challenges as well as the opportunities together. Yeah, so the new time represents all of this, and so we've had to make it, of course, quite simple in the game of how we play that out in the gameplay dynamics. So in the game board, you will see a little clock on the top right corner of your game board, and that represents the Moloch clock. And when you start the game, it starts at 6 o'clock. And you need to, in order to win, you need to reverse it. And a lot of people think that progress and winning means progressing it and letting the arrow of time run forward. But if you are running forward in the wrong timeline, you're getting further into trouble. It's like, you're lost in the forest and you start running in the wrong direction. It takes you a lot more work and effort to get out. So what we are saying in the game is you need to reverse that clock. So in winning back time, you're winning back your power, you're winning back your choice making, you're winning back in a way your freedom, because the Moloch clock is a clock of enslavement. We become slaves to that game. And then the other winning condition is you need to restore the Elowyn Tree of Life. So in the game story, the Elowyn Tree of Life has been taken over by Moloch. It's seeping away its energy from its roots, and it's affecting the whole game world. So you need to bring that back fully to health, because inside the Elowyn Tree is a portal. And when the collective consciousness aligns sufficiently, and the alignment and the coherence is almost a threshold of that maturation. And you can't force that. You got to play for it. And when it opens sufficiently, then the portal to the new time opens. And when the portal to the new time opens, we can make the connection also in consciousness with a future world in the story, a future world where Moloch has transformed with the help of benevolent artificial sentient intelligences that have understood the danger of the types of AIs that we are now creating. And how through our gameplay, by really playing for win-win and collective thriving, we need to help actualize the benevolent potential of new wisdom-based AI, AGI, ASI prototypes. I'm not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. Yes, yes.
Okay,
Good.
could be that. Anyway, that I think it's fascinating about time and how, how we as humans or perceive time differently, or different cultures. Like even I'm yeah, also with Dragon Dreaming, but also with other writing about indigenous way of understanding the world, and and wisdom, and how time is perceived differently, and the difference between seeing the linear, the chronos time and the kairos time, the time that is the dream time, you might say, which is a sort of a loop rather than a line, and how that even science starting to come to resisting a bit, but it kind of it's the logical conclusion for the discrepancies is that time is a dimension rather than a reality as such. So I
Mm.
think, and so maybe even it's not even new time; it's old time, it's ancient time at the same time.
Yes,
So
that's it.
it's kind of the dream time that sort of gets unlocked through that, and something that indigenous First Nations, Aboriginal have known and kept as a knowledge for very long, and we all, the rest of us that have been separated from that, are need to return to that. And maybe that's what I hear as well.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, so the next question is maybe just to tell us more about there was a big launch. I was listening in the Zoom call where there was the pre-alpha launch, and yeah, how do you feel now with that? What's happening, and what is emerging from this great moment? And I know that it has been a lot of energy and time in the making, and now it's there with,
Mhm. Yes.
and yeah.
Thank you. And I'm so glad you could join that because it was such a beautiful celebration of so many people sharing their insights and contributions. So, anyone, you can, if you go to the Earthrise Games YouTube channel, you can still watch it there. So if anyone is curious about that. So yeah, the pre-alpha, the MVP version is now online. So at earthrise.games, when you sign up there, you get a link to play the game. It's free. And it's an exciting phase because in playing the game also you help actually to train the AI systems that are part of Elowyn. So they're not just in the lore, they're also there for real life. So the Moloch AI, which is actually a benevolent AI systems, but that is kind of testing humans in our deception mechanics with a clear intention to help us mature. But sometimes you need to understand how you get trapped in something before you can learn how not to. So that is its role is to really test. Okay, how ready are we to play a different game and help us become aware of the real life Molochs in the world. And then there's the Elowyn Tree of Life AI as well, that will be now further developed. It's not yet operational in the MVP. It's there as a focal area of the game, what you play for. But in the later versions, there'll be the opportunity to interact with the Elowyn tree as well, and that the Elowyn tree can then give you feedback and guidance on your gameplay also. So help you understand that if I've been playing this card and suddenly the clock is not reversing, it's going to Moloch. What just happened? How did I cause that to happen? Or if you are winning back time and you go, no idea, and just put these cards together and somehow, oh, there I go. It's like, okay, do you understand what action did you take? And then, of course, the question is then always, what does it mean for me in my own life? If I, for example, there are synergy cards, and there will be many more synergy cards also in the next round, where if, for example, you play the Cosmic Serpent and it has a time reversal of 1 hour in that. If you next to it play a code card, and this is with the first character called Aleph. And so Aleph has two of these hero cards. And so you have to really strategize. If you have that Cosmic Serpent, but you play it too soon and you don't have your code card there, you're not going to get your time reversal effect. So, for example, in real life, it means sometimes we're working very hard on one strategy and we get too soon to launch it, and we're not patiently also waiting on a secondary strategy that we may think is less important, but it's about aligning them and combining them, and then the synergy that opens up through combined is what is going to really help us to advance things further. So there are a lot of these strategies to make that happen playfully, but give great opportunities to actually reflect on. So how I'm feeling, I'm delighted we got to this point. It's already, of course, further in some ways than we hoped. I'm also, of course, very aware everything that is that we still need to develop. It's a very large vision and one that we can only bring to life and fully manifest together. So this is where we are really putting the invitation out there to people, come and join us. Very excited that we started with some of our school pilots, like one of the Earth School in the Philippines. The kids are playing the game there now, and we are learning also from their interaction with the game. What do they like? What do they find challenging? I've noticed that it is important to have a little bit of these kind of educational, conversational sessions to go with the game if you want to really benefit from the educational component that it offers. If you just want to just have fun and play, that's of course not needed. But I think there's tremendous potential there to use it as a way to have these deeper conversations, but that requires that there's some context building around that. Kind of conversations we're having now, or conversations with a group of people playing that together. I played it with a 14-year-old student from the Earth School the other week, and I asked him to guide me. How should I play this card? And what do you think? And that one. So, I had to move the cards, but he was like my teacher. It was so beautiful. And that moment of gameplay together and listening to him and his understanding and how he studied it and the choices that he's making. And it gave me kind of an insight also into his world. So there's a lot of exciting opportunities ahead. We're also actively raising funding for the game so that we can continue. And our commitment is really to have this with the right funding strategies so that it's not big investment that's taking over the game. Then we would be in Moloch. We don't want to do that. So some ways we're going slower than some people may expect, but that is because we're very careful also who we are onboarding and how we are financing this in a way that it really remains in integrity and by the community and for the community. So we are now embarking on alpha. That will take about 5 to 6 months. There will then be multiplayer available. So in addition to being able to play against the Moloch AI and its Shadow Arcs, you'll be playing to be able to team up with other people. There will be more ways of interacting than also with the Elowyn Tree AI. We'll start shaping the beginning also of tournaments that will be possible and a marketplace around that as well. And I need to design 100 more cards. So I'm going to be busy with the artwork. We have now 40 cards and then, of course, all the hero cards. But there will be another 100 cards added to it with lots of more combinations as well. So to really purposefully design these cards that it synergizes this again so that it unlocks the potential. For example, you were mentioning Kairos earlier. Kairos is one of the guardians of Elowyn that you play, and that's a future wizard. And Kairos has also, he holds in his hands this druid staff and this way to open the time portal. So there will be, for example, a card specifically on that staff. And you could utilize that not only in game, but also as a way to bring you into that dream time. And it's exciting because there's a whole world of Elowyn behind the game, you see. And this is usually in the dream time. This is where I go into that world. And this is where I kind of meet the characters there. I did that first in the writing of the stories for the Future Humans trilogy, where the cosmic dragon was a very important archetype and teacher in the second book, to teach us about the alchemy of fire, and through that, the alchemy of fire, about the wisdom-based use of our power, and how fire, and humanity's biggest lesson right now is about fire, not using fire for the destruction, but fire for purification, fire for transformation. Fire is the basic energy of our hearts. Yeah, so this is where we need to bring that fire. So yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful time.
Yeah, no, it's very exciting. And I guess we are already connected through a Future Leaders program and
Yes,
Living
exactly.
Cities Earth. And I think we already had some short conversation about, well, I had a history of gaming when I was a bit younger, but not exactly I wasn't necessarily very on war games, but a lot of adventure games and kind of Heroes of Might and Magic and things like that, and kind of adventure and world building. which also echoes with how I remember growing up in the Galilee and kind of going on adventures, imaginary adventures in nature,
Yes.
which and I see my daughter, and yesterday they were playing in the park, and this is the sort of gaming that world that like the creating worlds, you know, like that, which is also another game on and very I would say natural ability of human beings, especially when it's encouraged and not kind of locked in. So unfortunately, a lot of our educational instruments are actually going against the natural capacity of imagination and
Yes.
creativity in children, and kind of expanding that space for young people, and how it is a skill, a muscle for necessary, especially in times where we are facing the necessity to reinvent almost everything. Um, so I think this is great. Yeah, and I love this idea that it's a world that we can expand. And
Yes.
I've been thinking about, you know, what will be an Elowyn chess game and what is an Elowyn,
I would
and
love
create
that.
creating different variations, also physical, you know, like I would love to see the cards physically, you know, to feel
Yes,
the
me too.
and see, because I
Yes.
feel there's yeah, so who knows, you know, I'm very excited to explore that and getting people in the same room together to
Right.
see what's next. Um, and I guess you basically already answered my fifth question, but if you want to share more about how can people join in co-founding and contributing to this journey, and any places to direct them to join in.
Yes,
Uh,
get in touch. Exactly. Go, Earthrise of Games is where you can see the game, get involved. We have every second Tuesday of the month at 9 a.m. Pacific time. We have a community call, free online with the team, with the stewards, with the advisors, with the communities. So join those calls where you hear the latest updates. You can give your input. You can share your input. If you have particular talents or abilities, or even like to volunteer some of us in the creation process together, as well. Get in touch. There's a Discord channel as well, where you can get in touch. But I think the best way is just reach out to us, and let's really work with these beautiful ideas like you have for the board game. I love to see that the Elowyn game, and also what the Elowyn Tree of Life represents, that it's almost like an archetypal, imaginal invitation for us that can then help ignite and inspire so much creativity. Like for you, looking at how does a board game of that look like? We love to work with people on the wisdom pack. So I've been looking at how the cards that I've been designing can be as a wisdom pack as well. So you can draw a card every day to help guide you of what's happening in my life, what patterns do I need to be aware of, what are the perhaps potentials and opportunities that I'm not seeing. We also lead Future Humans Quest, both online but also in person. These are also wonderful imaginal opportunities to dream into our greater potential. So there's a lot of ways indeed to on board, to get on board, get involved, to co-create together, and to be co-founding this new civilization together, and to do so playfully.
Beautiful, thank you. So we'll put all of this in the description of the video when we go, like earthwise.global, and the game, the pre-alpha is there, and everything, all the other information is there. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your active hope and dreams of the future in a playful and inspiring way.